Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with yet another 80s slasher film. And this is one I just saw for the first time. Kind of ashamed to admit that, because this is another major slasher film title. 1980s Terror Train with Jamie Lee Curtis, my favorite scream queen. Mainly took me a while to see it because this one was kind of hard to find. I was finally able to come across it for cheap. The boys and girls of Sigma Phi. Some will live, some will die. Obviously, I've known about this movie for a very long time. It is, again, one of the most popular, most important slasher films, I think. Came out in 1980. Obviously, I just said that. This was made almost immediately after Prom Night, which Jamie Lee Curtis is also in. Actually, I like this one more than Prom Night. I get Prom Night is probably a bigger title, more popular, probably aged better, but I really like Terror Train. It's probably one of the more clever of even the better ones. It's not quite as bloody. I mean, it still has its blood, but it's more clever. I'm surprised there wasn't more slasher films that took the idea, and I don't mean the idea of the train. I mean of the killer. It was directed by Roger Spotswood, written by T.Y. Drake. I know it's probably Ty, but there's periods. Now, as far as the cast goes, other than Jamie Lee Curtis, the character of Mo, her boyfriend, I looked him up, played by Timothy Weber, and I couldn't find anything else I'd seen him in, but he looks familiar. He kind of looks like Judge Reinhold. And also, I had known this, but I didn't realize it until I saw the opening credits. David Copperfield plays the magician. He's just credited as the magician. And you get to see him do magic, which I'm a sucker for magic. Not really big Chris Angel stuff, but cards and coins and stuff. I love that shit. Which is kind of funny. Takes place on New Year's Eve, but there's a banner that says Happy Halloween. Don't know. Of course, this is also a Canadian slasher film because at this time, Canada was pumping out slashers just left and right. Because of taxes, they're able to make them a hell of a lot cheaper. But anyway, so the movie opens up. There's this party, and I guess it's called Hog Night, where the fraternity of Sigma Phi, which I guess it's Omega Sigma Phi, it's like a fraternity and sorority. I didn't go to colleges. I was never into frats and sorority stuff. I don't know how all that works. Hog Night is a night where pledges have to get laid. It's sort of part of their pledge. And there's this shy, awkward kid named Kenny Hampson, who all the kids pick on. They've staged this elaborate prank, and they need popular Jamie Lee Curtis to help them do it. And these are all med students, too, also. So, they get Kenny to go up to this bedroom where he thinks he's going to get laid. Jamie Lee Curtis's job is to sort of stand behind, because it's like a bed with like the curtains around it. She's supposed to stand behind it and kind of talk to him, like, do the voice for the woman that's in the bed. She doesn't realize it, but the woman in the bed is a mutilated corpse. And when Kenny sees it, he freaks the fuck out. He spins around, gets all caught up in the curtains, and that's when everyone comes in to laugh at him. goes away to a psychiatric hospital, and we jump ahead 3 years. Now it's senior year. Med students are graduating. It's New Year's Eve. And you sort of get the idea that the whole trip was paid for by this guy, Doc, who, for some reason, I can't remember his name. I gotta look it up because it's pissing me off. It sort of reminded me of Animal House, these two guys, the sort of lead guys. Cast. Otter, okay. So, Doc is sort of like the Otter from Animal House, and his friend Mo is sort of like Boone. They're best friends. Jamie Lee Curtis is dating Mo. Her best friend, Mitchie, is dating Doc. And Doc's an asshole. He gets off on hurting people, like, emotionally. They keep bringing up Kenny Hampson, and Jamie Lee Curtis is hurt by it. You know, she feels bad. And it's also a costume party, which plays a major role. And this is what I mean by, I'm surprised other slashers didn't do this. Kenny has either escaped or been released from the hospital. And he was able to get aboard the train because the class clown Ed, dressed up as Groucho Marx, he kills him, takes his costume, and gets on the train and sort of goes undetected. And what I really mean by why they haven't done this more is because he doesn't just take the Groucho costume. Every time he kills somebody, he takes their costume. He's constantly changing. And I thought that was really clever. The writers or producers pretty much said, we want Halloween on a train. And what better way to do it than that? Costume party where the killer takes his victims' costumes. It's kind of funny because when the real Groucho guy, he has this trick where he opens up a cigarette box and it's his thumb inside. He gets stabbed and left on the platform, train runs him over. But later on when he does the thumb trick, it's a real thumb in it. And, then he kills this guy in lizard costume by smashing his head against a mirror. So then he dons the lizard costume, which is kind of funny because he's kind of like a chameleon amongst everyone. I don't really want to give away the names of everyone he kills because this is really good. And I'm sure if you're into slasher films, I mean, this is a first, or one of the first for many people. It is a must if you're a slasher fan. I can't believe it took me this long. I just couldn't find it. Then he kills the girl in the witch costume. He takes her costume. And that's pretty much what he is for the rest of the movie. You don't actually see him wear the conductor hat. And then there is a conductor who's sort of going around the train. And he keeps finding the bodies. But every time he gets someone to look at it, or he goes back to find them, they've been cleaned up and moved. Like when the lizard guy was in the bathroom and there's blood everywhere. Of course, the kills are always sort of off screen. It's one of those slashers where the kills, just when it's about to happen, it cuts out. You just see the aftermath later. But I like the movie as a whole, so that's why I kind of forgive it for not being super bloody. Plus, everyone says, Friday the 13th is sort of the go-to for blood, gore, and slashing, and it deserves it. So, Jamie Lee Curtis starts to suspect, because she finds out with the conductor that people are being killed. And, so then, like, halfway through, they're able to stop the train. They get all the kids off. They're looking for the killer. she already thinks it's this Kenny kid because she knows he was fucked up and that everyone killed was involved with the prank. And then, of course, it's a Jamie Lee Curtis slasher film. So, of course, most of the end of the film is her being chased one-on-one. Which it is, and I thought it was well done. I thought this whole movie was better than Prom Night. I do like Prom Night, though. The killer, at one point, spoilers from here on out, major spoilers. She's able to kick the killer off the train at one point, but it shows he's hanging on. And the scariest part of the movie, and it reminded me of Halloween, with also Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously. She sort of changed out of her costume, and she's kind of in her cabin, sort of resting. And the window's right behind her, and yeah, the music picks up, but he's like upside down, looking at the window, like trying to get in, then he just sort of goes somewhere else. But he's wearing the witch costume, so it's this old lady mask with curly white hair. Looks fucking freaky, and it's all at nighttime. Just the way it was shot was very well done. And I didn't really understand the ending, though, which actually, let me, yeah, the ending kind of confused me a little bit. Okay, I guess that makes sense. During the prank, when she was supposed to be the voice of the woman, how did they get the corpse? They're med students. And the doc guy was able to get a body from this morgue he was working at. So Jamie Lee Curtis is, pretending to be the voice, saying like, "Kiss me, Kenny." So finally, by mistake, she ends up with Kenny. She goes to sit down and put her head down, and that's when Kenny grabs her arms across the table. She apologizes, and the guy that plays Kenny, I mean, he is kind of awkward and weird looking, which helps. He's not a super great actor, but he did deliver some good lines. Like, he says, like, "You haven't changed." And of course, this is backstage of the magician show, which David Copperfield's magic was awesome. The sword box, someone gets in 6 swords through. That opens, David Copperfield is dead in it. And you find out his tall, red-headed female assistant was Kenny the whole time. He takes off the disguise bit by bit. And Jamie Lee Curtis, you see several times when they're looking at the yearbook, Kenny was into magic. And she says something like, "I bet you were better than him. I know you're a better magician." He says something like, "I am. He didn't know how to cut women up into pieces." Good delivery. So then he keeps telling her, saying, "Kiss me," just like she told him. And she does. But then it sort of makes him relive the prank, and he looks at the blood on his hands, has another freak out where he's spinning all around. Conductor hits him with a shovel, and he just falls out the door, which I guess there's a door backstage. And conveniently, they're going over a bridge, and he falls down to the icy water. I mean, like any slasher film, it is slow. It has its slow moments, especially the midsection. I do wish it was a little more like Halloween, where like POV shots, or it showed more of the stalking and the blending in. Because Mo gets killed, he's sitting right next to Doc in a crowded room watching the magician. And I'm just gonna look up what it says about him getting killed, because I think I might have missed it. Yeah, they're just sitting next to each other. It's dark, magic show going on. But then he seems to be passed out because they're all drinking, and he's stabbed. So it's like he was able to blend in, stab him, but you don't see it. Terror Train, it was well worth the wait. I definitely gotta recommend it. Prom Night, I respect. It's not my favorite, but I do have to recommend it because it is mandatory for genre fans. You don't hear people talk about this too much, but I do think it's mandatory. It is one of the big ones. Jamie Lee Curtis, 1980. But I still thought it was well done. Slower, not as bloody, but I think where you don't follow the killer as much and it is slow. So when he finally is on the screen, it's exciting. I do like that shot up close where he's in the Groucho mask and you just see his eyes kind of like watch people. Some shots are kind of dreamlike, like that one. But yeah, classic slasher, terror train. If you're a fan of the genre or 80s horror, definitely pick it up. I would put this above Prom Night. So for Room 237, that's Terror Train. Thank you.